Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Barbara Stroud. I'm so excited to bring you to another one of my interviews with professional colleagues / friends. I am so very excited to have Dr. Linda Gilkerson as my guest today. When you say her name in the infant mental health field, people go, wow, because she's such an icon in our community. Not only is she a professor at the Erickson Institute, she founded the Fussy Baby Network. And if you don't know about the Fussy Baby Network, you will learn today. She developed the FAN model, which we'll also share with you today. She is a member of the 0 to 3 board, a research publication. If you Google her name, you'll get more information than you can digest. And I am so very honored to say that she is my friend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here and being open to have this conversation with me and all the folks who are going to watch. And I wanted to start with really what drove you to this work with the FAN and give people an introduction to Fussy Baby Network, because there's some people out there that might not know your work, which to me is shocking, but that's possible.
Oh, no. Well, thank you, Barbara. I love these conversations. I think, you have just a way of being with people that brings out our best. So thank you so much for having
My pleasure.
giving me this opportunity. And I always like to say that I got into infancy on the day I was born. Amazing. Yeah. Like I was born on my due date, but I weighed 4.5 pounds. And I know, small for gestational age. Intrauterine growth retardation would be the way they used to call it, although my mom didn't know that was what it was. And back in those days, you couldn't be with your baby. Baby stayed at the hospital and parents stayed at home. And, for me, I honestly have a reflection of a nurse. I feel like I can go back to being in a nurse's arms, in a rocker, in a nursery, feeling alone, but seeing my parents at the window. They weren't at the window. They didn't get to come. But in some way, I was trying to hold the separation and still have some way to be connected, So when I did get home, it was really hard on my parents. And that's the infant mental health story that starts. My dad had been in the Air Force. My mom had been in the Navy. My older brother was an easy baby. And you know what small for gestational age babies are like? They don't quite have it all together. They got to get finished up after they're born. So I was really a difficult feeder. My mom said it would take her 2 hours to feed me. She'd put me down, then she'd have to start in again. I didn't sleep. And it was really hard for them to understand what was happening and to just manage it all. So I think in some way I internalized that issue of being the problem and also being alone. And my parents, it's interesting because my mom said, you were the healthiest one. So in her mind, it just kind of all went away, at some level. But it was gone, but it went away, but it wasn't gone. And so how you see yourself is a combination of how other people see you and how you see yourself.
I want to just such a powerful story, and I've learned something new about you. Look at that. There is this larger narrative that babies don't remember. Those of us in the infant mental health field know babies remember in their soul. They don't have perhaps the organized narrative that you have, but they remember in their soul all this emotional content and this visceral experience, right? And just holding on to the impact of the relationship when a baby is separated from their birth parents, even now in the NICU kind of experience, although we're doing better.
Much better.
But there is still this emotional distance, I'm going to say, for the child and their caregivers. So,
Yeah. And the NICUs have done so much. I had the privilege of working with Heidi Alls for many years. Yes, another true icon.
True icon, yeah.
True icon, and she really helped the unit see that the parent is the parent. The baby expects to be held by, this is our species expectation, is that we will be close to the big people. We'll be held by our tribe, if you will.
Yeah.
And we'll be part of this. And so she's really worked to try and recreate that for babies and for parents. And, you know, and you know, babies are acutely ill. So how do you do that? Not all of them, but some. How do you do that and still hold the humanness of that
Right.
baby seeking that parent, and the parent seeking the baby? But
Yeah.
lots of progress have been made. And I love Heidi's idea that the baby is your ally, that, you know, the baby is an ally in this process. The baby has a developmental thrust,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then how you can hold that with the parents, you know, intuitive
Mhm.
desire, and really bring that together, and then be empathic to parents who don't want to come to that unit, who are scared by it, afraid of it, feel judged by it.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
how can you hold them in your mind and
Mhm.
heart too? So again, all
Yeah.
this great infant mental health work that's going on in so many different settings.
Yeah, and I think many NICUs are starting to conceptualize this way, holding a trauma-informed lens in that experience.
Oh yeah.
That's I don't think we always sort of named it directly as trauma, but that is trauma. When your
Mm-hmm.
infant is removed for their own health and safety, and yes, and we want them to thrive, and being in that isolate and not being able to connect with your baby, that's traumatizing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
having
so
experiences of helplessness, fear and helplessness combined.
yeah.
That's that trauma experience. But you know, there is hope, because I think there's more awareness now. And when we started the Fussy Baby program, I think I had that little baby in mind, though. You know, and I just wanted other babies, and well, then the other piece, probably the real graduate school for me in fussy babiness, was when I had my own fussy baby.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Babies will teach us a lot. I always say that to people. I'm
Oh,
like, babies are fabulous teachers when you pay attention. Yes, go
they
ahead.
are, and the lessons don't stop, you know, coming.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, and so there, my experience there was of being scared, having a scare in the labor and
yeah,
delivery room,
yeah.
needing to talk about that, trying to tell people about it, being scared a little bit with what I saw in my sweet little baby,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and having the experience of people really not being able to hold it. Um, the rush to reassure is so enormous, because you feel the pain of that other person and you want to take it away from them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah,
Yeah, I just want to underscore that because that is really a really significant statement at many, many levels. The rush to soothe or sort of make people feel better.
yeah.
You said it so much more eloquently than I did, because our own angst in our nervous system about your
Oh,
stress
yeah.
pushes us to console and to make it better.
Right.
And when you're dealing with a fussy baby, which we'll talk about the fan, and when you're dealing
Yeah.
with a dysregulated toddler who just wants that cookie, or you're dealing with a teenager that is
Yeah.
out of their mind because of a negative post on our social media these days, right? Or you're holding the pain of racial tension and social injustice. These are things that dysregulate our nervous system, and we would like to pacify it away, and yet we can't.
No.
So I think that's a really big ticket for this discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. We have to hold ourselves. We have to have ways. Yeah, I know.
I
To
had to
hold
breathe on
ourselves.
that one.
I
Yeah.
know. To hold ourselves. Literally, sometimes it is holding yourself.
Yeah, we've been
You
giving
know.
each other virtual hugs these days. If you haven't seen this, you guys, here we go. This is the virtual hug where you just give yourself a nice little
Get
feel good
deep
moment. We need that
pressure.
these days,
We do.
definitely.
We
Yeah.
need that, and we need to be able to hold ourselves so we can hear and believe the other person's story. Um, and that's what we found in our fussy baby work with other parents too, and even in research on fussy babies, parents try and say, but people can't. But it's hard to believe them. And I think we were talking about now with racial injustice, that people are starting to hear and they're starting to believe,
Yeah.
and that's what we have to be able to do:
Yeah.
hear and hold that other's world. Back to what we're saying is, I think the fan helps us turn the lens where the pain is, and it helps us stay there, um, and really take it in. And whether it's with a fuss parent with a fussy baby, we on our fussy baby warm line, we'll have parents of 4-week-olds call us and say they're worried that their baby has autism. you know,
Oh, oh,
little,
oh,
I know,
yeah.
little brand new baby, parents so worried. And, there's so much pressure to teach at that moment, right? Reassure, um, take away that worry. And what
Yeah.
we learn to do is to go there, hear it.
Mhm.
What is it that your baby's doing that makes you feel she might have autism? To really unpack that with the parent. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're really talking about I just want to underscore again, we're talking about, you said, the lens on the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we often talk about being with, right? That holding together the angst, the discomfort, and I'm going to add kind of creating the space, the moment for that parent to really teach us about their experience, and
Yeah.
that is going to impact our emotional experience, because that's the nature of relationships.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
We impact each other. We are in it. We are truly in it. You know, that phrase "in it together" is so overused right now, but it is a relationship,
Yeah,
and
and
we're part of it.
right.
Yeah.
I want to get to you showing us the fan, but I also just want to also say that in it together means um, in the pain of it together too. And
Yes.
I think that
Mhm.
that's the part that sometimes is challenging, is that when
Mhm.
we're truly in it together, that means you have to feel that all the complexity of the other person's
Yeah.
pain, and I mean that's hard. It's hard.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you really do. And I think there are times when you really do just have to let yourself somatically feel it. Just be still, let what you're hearing be felt in your body, and just stay with that. Um, and hold that inside as you keep listening.
yeah,
As you keep listening. And you taught me about how important it is not to minimize when you're listening to people. And you said to keep your emotional self in check, especially when we're starting to cross racial lines, we're having
yeah,
these difficult conversations. It's
yeah.
really our responsibility in this moment to be able to have ways to keep our emotional self in check.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can truly be there and be bridges. So maybe just a word about the fan. Take
Um,
a minute.
Linda's getting court organized. I want to also just share for the audience that after the murder of George Floyd, and which was a seminal point in our nation, while there have been many murders before and many after, and I'm not minimizing any of those. However, that sort of was the ringing of the bell of everyone needs to wake up and pay attention. And my dear friend Linda reached out to me, what an amazing ally, and said, how can I help? She said, there's so much I don't know, Barbara, and I want to be an ally. And what does that look like? And that kind of began our journey of thinking about,
Yeah.
um, you know, how we can help people to hold this space. And we're going to start with the fan as a model with babies, and then transition that to a model for thinking about social justice. Here we go. Okay,
Yeah.
you
All
did it.
right. Yay.
Yay.
All right. There's the fan. Um, so because it was so intense, our work with parents of fussy babies, and fussy, this fan now is, by the way, generalizable. It's used in all kinds of settings. We train judges, we train lawyers, we train physicians, we train home visitors, mental health clinicians, child welfare workers, youth mentors, used in over 25 states. There's really a generalizability to this framework, which we didn't really know when we developed it. But it really is about being with the other person. And the whole theory of change is attunement. If someone feels connected to you and understood by you, that's what opens them up. That's when they can share with you. That's when they can learn from you. That's when they can try to interact with you in new ways, and have new ways of relating themselves. It's all about that connection and that attunement. And simply stated, attunement means being on the same page with the other person. And social workers, many of us are social workers, have known from the beginning, start from where the client is. People say, well, how do you do that? How do you know how to do that really profound thing? And the fan helps us with that. If you look at the fan, you've got the person you're focused on in the middle. Here we've got a parent in the middle from the fussy baby, but it might be your partner. It might be your child. It might be your neighbor. It might be someone in the elevator, that you're having an interaction with. It can be any person. And so the fan is a model of attunement to yourself and attunement to the other person at the same time. So the wedge to the left, the calming wedge, that's our wedge. We are 1/5 of the equation here. And that's where we're tracking our own regulation, our own dysregulation in an interaction, being able to catch ourselves and reset ourselves in that actual moment, and use strategies to bring ourselves back to balance. I remember one mom who I knew well. She told me that her new baby was an alien, and it really threw me for a loop. I had to go right there to mindful self-regulation, calming and mindful self-regulation. And one of my strategies is to take a breath. I say, take a breath, Linda, and ask a question. So I took a breath and I said, tell me more about that. And she laughed and she said, we've never had a red-haired baby in our family. I don't know where she came from, but isn't she cute? It went in a whole different direction than I had thought it was going to go. I had my DC 0 to 5 diagnostic hat on. This baby was an alien to the mom, but that wasn't really the story. So how can you hold yourself so you can really enter that other person's world and see it through their eyes first? So then you've got these other 4 wedges, simple as they are, to help you think about where that other person is. Are they in feelings? Then you can offer them support. We call it, fancy words, empathic inquiry, simple words, listening with acceptance. You can just hear somebody and hold it. You might just lean forward. You might put your hand on your heart as somebody tells you something that's really touching. You might go, oh. It's just some way that they know that you got it. You feel some of what they feel and you are with them. It's often nonverbal. We call that holding. You can also validate, which we all know how to do. And we say just use simple words. There's a wonderful Native American phrase, be lean of speech. So we say, be lean of speech here. Say simple things like, wow, that sounds rough. And then pause. Let it sink in. That person will tell you if they want to stay more in that feeling wedge and invite for more empathic support, or whether they're kind of ready to move. Or another 4th thing you can do is explore, as we all know how to do. Tell me more what that's been like for you. Wow, how did you feel when he clung to you so tightly and wouldn't go into the classroom? So you can do that. Or you can help bridge from feelings. And that's acknowledging the feeling and then helping people move to thinking. When we train physicians and other non-mental health professionals, they're so worried. If you acknowledge feelings, you'll never get out of there. It's like a rabbit hole, so don't touch that space. But actually, if you do go there, it often alleviates worry, and parents can move on to the thinking wedge. And that's what we call collaborative exploration. That works when the affect is contained. If they're upset, you can't really think with them. It's all, all they know about the brain is kind of intuitively built into the fan. So collaborative exploration is the yellow light before doing. It's the asking parents, what's your hunch? What do you think's going on here? Which way are you leaning? Drawing out from them their experience. Lots of questions that you know already. What have you tried so far? Has anything helped at all? What doesn't work? Super important to know. And also, at the end of a process of problem solving with a parent, asking this question, what will it be like for you to try this new way? And giving a pause again, for them to think, can I really put my baby down, and leave when he's crying? Can I really do that? Am I really ready for that? So again, a reflective process. The next wedge of the fan is a doing wedge. And this is where we live a lot, and parents need us there too. It's just we don't want to go there too quickly, right? This is where we give our information. This is where we teach. This is where we do parent-child activities together. This is where we acknowledge parents' strengths that they already have. One of our tips with giving information, we learned this from Fussy babies' parents who say their life is in a spin cycle. And that's true for most of us right now, I think. So much is going on always in the background. We call it offer a drop and explore. Just give a tiny, tiny bit. Just say it in one breath is kind of the guideline. And then engage. You know, one of my favorite examples is a dad who was like texting during the whole visit, but he heard this word temperament and he looked up to the home visitor and he said, "What's temperament? I never heard of that." So you've got like 20 seconds now with this dad. He's right there with you. And so the drop is, you know, babies have personalities right from the start. And the explore is, what have you noticed about your little girl? And he says, she's nothing like her brothers. And you are into a conversation. So again, there has to be an invitation to make the doing wedge work. That's the one we often go to too soon. And then there's the integration wedge at the end. And that's when parents have new insights. They see something in new ways, or your friends has a new insight. A staff member can use this in supervision too. I had a parent say to me, "I get it. He doesn't like to be touched and I don't either. I never thought of it that way." That's this precious reflective functioning, seeing meaning in behavior, and we're always watching that. So even though I explained it like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's more like this. And sometimes it's just like this. Sometimes you just stay in that feeling wedge the whole time. Sometimes you're really more active in doing. Sometimes parents need you to start with doing. They need more activity, and then you can move with them. So Barbara, that was a lot. That was a lot more than a drop.
That's okay.
Yeah. So let's
There we go.
any thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt while you were walking through that. And I think a lot of times as helpers, whether we're mental health or home visitors or physicians or what have you, we have a lot of content knowledge, and we want to share that with families. So there's this idea that our content knowledge is really powerful and it will help. So someone says my baby's an alien, and we jump to doing, right?
Yes.
that tends to be our default. And one of the lovely things about the fan is prompting us to hold space.
Yes.
We say it, and yet I think our own anxiety and our own brain system pushes us to want to help. We are helpers, we are carers. That's how we landed in this field. And so we jump to the doing. And for me, as someone who does a lot of supervision and consultation, reminding folks of the exploration and thinking together, because parents know a lot, and we get caught up in our science and what we know that we know. And I think sometimes we have to pull back and be humble and sort of say to parents, what do you know? Because you have known this baby since inception. I say that often. It's like, you've known this baby from the moment they were conceived. So you'll always have more information than I have.
Exactly.
And as and that thinking wedge, of course, my brain in this moment of holding space for racial intolerance and social injustice is a question about, what does your family culture tell you about this baby? And currently I'm really pushing towards relationships with ancestors, because I think, I think many of us culturally, regardless of your race or ethnicity, this baby represents a family culture and a history and an ancestry. And I think now is a wonderful time to start asking those questions.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Because those are powerful relationships that go unspoken. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is your baby's relationship to their great-great-grandmother or father? Who isn't even here?
Yes.
We name children after, past relatives sometimes.
Oh, we sure do.
We say, oh, they have Aunt Sally's ears, or, whatever, right? And maybe that redheaded alien is a great-great-grandparent. So I think, that's, for me, that feels like a great way to honor culture and history by letting families celebrate their past through pointing at the future, right?
That's beautiful. Today is my granddaughter's first birthday, today.
Oh.
And her middle name is after my mother.
See?
And the thought of asking my son and his wife, what do you think Quinn's relationship would be like with, great grandma Kathleen? What do you think it would be like if they had time together? That would just give me such pleasure. My son knew his grandmother really well, so he could picture that. But to bring her alive in a way.
Yeah.
Bring the family. the family heritage that's beautiful, and probably very grounding for people right now to see
Yeah.
them part of a, a bigger picture that they are unfolded in, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And particularly now there's so much going on. Huh? And we can get
Yeah.
really overwhelmed in this moment
Hmm.
to understand that we're part of a larger
Yeah.
experience, for me at least, is grounding.
Hmm.
That, I can look at what my great grandparents achieved that allowed me to be
Hmm.
here, and I
Hmm.
can make choices professionally and personally and politically that'll affect
Hmm.
my great grandchildren who I'll never meet,
Yeah. Right.
right? And
Yes.
that, when you sort of think that way, at least for me, it's very grounding
Hmm. And
and it's very powerful. Yeah.
yeah, that might be, not to categorize this, but that might be part of your that calming wedge right now, for
Hmm.
you to have an image of a bigger picture that you
Right.
can hold and that you can activate, and that helps you, stay centered in these, tumultuous times.
Hmm.
Part of,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. And again, that, yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think that is my calming wedge. It may not be what
Mhm.
calms someone else, but
Right,
I'm
right.
offering it. And also I am sort of really excited about the power of these intergenerational
Oh,
relationships.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful. We say about the thinking wedge, that's the underused wedge, for most everybody.
Hmm.
And actually, in our research, that if people endorse using collaboration more, they also report that they're less stressed. There's reduced burnout.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's not all on your shoulders.
Hmm. Hmm.
You believe in this partnership. And I like to think of, I'm a parent and a grandparent, and I am not an expert in any way. To have a little, um, you know, issue, I think, with that concept of parents as experts, but they have so much experience. That's saying
Yeah.
they have a huge experience bank,
Hmm.
like you're saying,
Hmm.
from inception on. And so I think we have to believe that in them sometimes, at times they don't believe it in themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you hold that. Tell me what have you seen that he
Hmm.
does not like at all? You know, um, what, teach me about, what has he told you about himself? What have you noticed? All that stuff. We did Brazeltons. We developed a family administered a Brazelton years ago, and we would go into the unit, that's when parents stayed for 48 hours. So we'd go in, 24 hours, and there wasn't a parent that we asked that question to. What have you noticed about your baby so far, that didn't have answers to that
Oh,
question?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure. I would imagine. Yeah.
yeah,
We are, again, right. We're designed to be observers.
yes,
Parents and all of us. We're designed
all of us.
to
Hmm.
observe human behavior and to respond in a way that creates connection and safety. So we're consciously, unconsciously protecting ourselves from injury, and a
Hmm.
lot of that happens through what we've learned is safe and not safe, and wanting to
Yes.
engage. We all want to engage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the more we can keep ourselves in that open space and curious and genuinely interested in that idea, I'm sure Mary Claire, you interviewed with Mary Claire Heffron, talked about this, the idea of not knowing, in holding that as part of the way of being with others, is genuinely
Hmm.
not knowing,
Hmm.
and really understanding together. It makes the work so powerful, I think, for both parties. And maybe that's what we talk about with racial justice too, that I'm a white person. There is a lot I do not know about this world.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I now know that, in a new way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And you said something, Barbara, when we talked earlier, you said the oppressed cannot stop the oppressor. You said the oppressor must step up and create the healing.
Yeah. The oppressed cannot stop the oppression.
Yes,
Yeah. The
yes, the
oppressor.
oppressed
Yes.
yes, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
The
That's okay.
oppressed cannot stop
Yeah.
the oppressor. The oppressor must step up and create the healing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of personal work that has to be done,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
to,
W-
be able to do that.
And yeah, and we've talked about how the fan is kind of a nice tool to think about that, because mindful self-regulation,
Hmm.
obviously, in this moment, is a great place to start. There's a lot of things happening that are they're dysregulating. How is that possible? That feels that's inhuman, that's unthinkable. I mean, I never knew. And for myself as a Black woman, this is something that is known to me, is known because my parents grew up in a racist America, you know, when segregation and Jim Crow was their life, went to segregated schools, the whole deal. So all of this is not unfamiliar to me. And I'm grateful that it's now on the national landscape, that everyone sees what I have seen. And when you talked about in the Fussy Baby Network, people not believing you, I think I can really resonate to that this idea that racism is real in America, the fact that people don't believe me, or people say it's not true, or people say you're too sensitive. These, again, are microaggressions, which over time become trauma to the brain also. So this not being seen in your experience is something that I can connect to personally, and I can't speak for every African American person out there, or person who's Latino or Asian, or of any race group that is non-white, any Black, Indigenous, person of color. I think we've had this almost depersonalization kind of experience where people deny our experience and want to throw us into this America sort of homogenous idea that we're all the same. We're not. We're not. That's a naive idea. And I don't think we ever will be. And I think that's okay. In fact, we're richer because we're not all the same.
Yeah.
So,
if we could
yeah.
have that as an idea and a value, you know, that could be unifying.
Yeah.
That we're
Yeah.
not the same. You know, that, yeah. I think one of the things that is helpful is the grounding and the listening part, and being taught, being open to being taught, into reading and reading the facts again. It's shocking, you know, when you really read the history again and know what actually happened. But I think that's all a part of the awakening. It's like you kind of knew, but now you really can feel it. I think that's what's happening on the fan. I think people are now in feeling, and that's good.
That's good.
And that's good because you're letting it in.
Yeah.
And it does hurt. And so that will make you want to, because that's intense affect. Intense affect can't last for a long time, so it gets, you know, it gets shut down, you know. So how to kind of stay in that open space. And there's this concept of self-compassion, which we're hearing a lot more about now. And and Tracy Magee has a book, The Inner Work of Racial Justice, and she talks about self-compassion as the other part of this equation. We have to hold and hear and believe, and we have to hold ourselves in ways that, you know, that can forgive ourselves, that can be kind to ourselves. You know, when we are suffering, when we mess up, when we don't get it, so we can, in a sense, be whole again, so we can, you know, be in those real relationships. So I think that's the important part of this big picture.
Thank you for pulling out the fan too, because I agree. I think we're in this place of feeling, those of us who are allowing ourselves to feel it, because it's hard. Some people are pushing against that because it is hard. It is hard to feel. And what I want to say to my white allies is, racism isn't your fault. You didn't establish it. It was here before you got here. You have been afforded privilege because of it. So it's not your fault. However, it is your responsibility to create a change, to create an awakening. And that's not I don't know that it's what you do necessarily as much as it's who you are. And I know that sounds very vague, but it is in the feeling and the collaborative thinking part of the fan. I think that's where it is. Feeling with people, helping hold their perspective, and then the thinking questions around, how can I be an ally? What do you most need from me, versus teach me your struggle? You know, and a lot of African Americans / Black folks have said, I'm tired of teaching people. I'm tired, you know. So and instead of teach me, help me be the best ally I can be. Like, I don't need you to
Interesting.
teach me to be the director, but I do want to know where I can most be helpful. And at least for me, and someone can have
Yeah.
a different opinion, at least for me, that is an offering to
Mhm.
participate in the journey of healing versus being
Mhm.
responsible for the journey of
Mhm.
healing. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very helpful, and that, we think of that as the thinking together wedge. Um, really, yeah,
Yeah.
really learning and learning from and exploring with. That would be really a good spot to be.
Yeah.
I do think though, for people, white people, there's this doing wedge
Yep.
does have a role.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you know, that we need to act in over and over again, um, as well, but from a grounded place, right? Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
thank you, because we're not asking you not to do. And I think when we talk about doing, and this, we could spend like an hour on just this topic.
Yeah.
So I want to sort of think about how we pull this together to a close. Although it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll never stop thanking you for sharing your time with me in this
Oh,
way.
no, thank
Um,
you. I've learned.
wh- yeah, we're not asking for a cosmetic change. In our family, we've laughed about the Aunt Jemima picture. It's like, I don't care what you put on your syrup. I really don't. I want you to shift redlining practices. I want you to create
Yeah.
equity in school systems. I want you to, really look at the Black infant mortality rate and deconstruct the system that allows that to happen.
Mhm.
So these are big doings. These are,
These
you
are
can't
big.
make a
Mhm.
simple. This is not a simple change the face of something. This is digging
No,
into the infrastructure
right.
of our systems.
Yeah.
And yes, and it's going to take a lot of time, and we're going to have to rethink a
Hmm.
lot of what we take for granted, but that's the kind of doing that
Hmm.
needs to happen, and the people in the positions to make that happen are white for the most part.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I will say, vote. That's what I'm going to say. I'm
Oh,
just going to say vote. Everybody
yes.
vote, and I'm not
Action.
going to
That's the doing
action.
wedge.
That's a
That's
doing wedge.
yes,
Vote.
yes, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Oh my.
Final thoughts. What do you want to offer to folks watching? And also, I want to make sure people know how to access, if they want more information about the fan, and can
Oh
they take a
yes, yes, yes.
training, or how do
Oh
they get that
yes.
information?
Absolutely. We offer training. We do train the trainer too for systems. And so we'd love to have you, contact us. You can contact me at Erickson, just Lgilkerson at erikson.edu. There's no C in Erickson. Um, and would be glad to share it with you and send articles and talk more about it. I think I want to end in hope because I felt that come up for me as you were talking, that the possibility of really listening right now and really asking, how can I be an ally? I think that the space is there for that.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's very hopeful. So that's what I'm going to end on.
Okay.
Oh, oh, yeah. Thank
I,
you,
I
Barbara.
yeah, I want to just there's so much I want to say, and I want to be efficient with my time, but thank you.
Thank you.
Please visit the Erickson Center website and look into more information about the FAN and the Fussy Baby Network. There's
See?
also a supervision FAN, which I know we didn't talk in detail about, but
Yes.
this is a wonderful tool for all my reflective practice supervisors out there, reflective practice facilitators, consultants, whatever term you use. This is a lovely tool to use in supervision. And you all know, all my watchers know, I am motivated to change the world one relationship at a time. So your relationship is a powerful tool. Use that as an opportunity for healing. And Linda, I just want to thank you once again for the
Thank
gift
you,
of your
Barbara.
time.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing to change the world. One relationship at a time.
One relationship at a time.